chase it, stress over it, depend on it, and even define ourselves through it. Yet very few truly understand how deeply it controls the rise and fall of civilizations. And fewer still know that more than 900 years ago, a scholar looked at money with such clarity that his insights feel like they were written for our world today. His name was Hamid Al-Ghazali, a philosopher, jurist, an economic thinker from the Islamic Golden Age, and long before the invention of capitalism, central banks, stock markets, or global debt. He issued a warning: when money loses morality, societies lose stability. The more you study the world today, the more you realize he was right. This story is not just about history. It's about right now, your economy, your paycheck, your future, because the financial crises we fear today were predicted almost a millennium ago, by a man who understood human nature better than modern economists understand numbers. To grasp the weight of Al-Ghazali's ideas, you must step into his world. It is the 11th century, a time often misunderstood as dark and primitive in the West. But in the East, the Islamic civilization was thriving. Cities like Baghdad, Cordoba, Cairo, and Damascus were global centers of knowledge. Scholars debated philosophy, mathematicians invented algebra, surgeons performed breakthrough procedures, traders connected continents. Libraries held tens of thousands of books, while much of Europe was struggling to rebuild after centuries of war and fragmentation. In this world of intellectual richness and economic dynamism, wealth was growing, but so were moral, social, and political cracks. Inequality was rising. Merchants manipulated markets. Rulers played dangerous games with currency. Families spent more than they earned. The symptoms looked painfully familiar: the rich getting richer, the poor struggling, and the middle class slowly dissolving. Al-Ghazali was watching all of this. He saw that people were becoming more wealthy, but less content. More informed, but less wise. More advanced, but less moral. And he realized that economic problems were never purely economic. They were spiritual, psychological, and ethical. He wrote that money is not the foundation of civilization, trust is. Once trust collapses between rulers and people, between markets and merchants, between buyers and sellers, stability evaporates. You can have gold, silver, trade routes, armies, scholars, resources, and innovation. Without trust, you have nothing. That idea alone makes him more relevant than ever, because modern economies are built almost entirely on trust. Trust in banks, trust in digital transactions, trust in currencies backed by nothing but promises. And as you look around the world today, rising inflation, unstable currencies, collapsing purchasing power, corruption scandals, and distrust in institutions, his warnings feel prophetic. Al-Ghazali believed the purpose of money was simple: to facilitate fair exchange and promote economic life. Money was never meant to be worshipped or hoarded. He compared money to a mirror. The mirror itself has no value. Its worth comes from what it reflects. In the same way, money has no value unless it moves, circulates, and allows people to build, trade, create, and live. This comparison seems simple, but it carries a profound truth. Hoarded money is dead money. When people hold wealth purely for the sake of holding it, burying it, locking it away, or collecting it beyond any reasonable need, they suffocate the economy. Circulation slows. Prices rise, scarcity increases, inequality spreads. Society fractures. He criticized not wealth itself, but the mindset that treats money as the ultimate goal rather than a means to build a healthy society. In his writings, he pointed out that when wealth stops circulating, it becomes a source of corruption. Wealthy families control markets, merchants manipulate supply. Rulers favor elites. Ordinary people lose mobility. Poverty becomes generational. Slowly but inevitably, society becomes divided into classes that no longer understand one another. If you look around the modern world with billionaires multiplying while wages stagnate, corporate monopolies controlling markets, and middle-income families falling behind, you can see the exact pattern Al-Ghazali warned about. But one of his sharpest insights was about speculation. We're in a world without stock markets, without crypto, without derivatives, without Wall Street. He still understood the danger of speculative behavior. He saw merchants who hoarded goods to create artificial scarcity. He saw traders who inflated prices during crises to exploit fear. He saw people treating wealth as a game rather than a responsibility. And he warned that profits earned from manipulation are not clever. They are corrosive. They destroy trust, distort markets, and weaken social bonds. Today, speculation is everywhere. Stock bubbles, housing bubbles, crypto crashes, bank collapses, currency manipulation, insider trading. Entire industries profit by inflating prices, creating artificial hype, and selling illusions. Al-Ghazali predicted that once speculation becomes normalized, economies become fragile, and society becomes cynical. People stop believing in fairness, stop believing in justice, they stop believing in hard work. Instead, they begin to believe that the only way to succeed is to cheat, and that belief destroys nations. Which brings us to his most famous economic stance, the condemnation of currency debasement. In medieval times, rulers often mixed cheaper metals into gold and silver coins to create more money than they actually possessed. It was the old version of printing money. It allowed rulers to spend more without earning more, but it also caused inflation, mistrust, and eventual collapse. Al-Ghazali called this practice a form of theft, not from individuals, but from entire societies. He argued that rulers who manipulate currency are more dangerous than thieves in the street because they destroy the very foundation upon which economic trust is built. Today, governments don't dilute coins with cheaper metals. They print digital numbers backed by nothing. Inflation rises, savings shrink, currencies fall. The system trembles. And once again, Al-Ghazali's warnings echo across the centuries. But perhaps his most forward-thinking insight was this: economies collapse not because of poverty, but because of corruption. Poverty weakens society, but corruption poisons it. A poor nation can survive if it is just, honest, and united. But a rich nation can collapse if it is corrupt, dishonest, and morally hollow. He wrote that corruption begins with small acts: a merchant lying about the weight of goods, a ruler taking a bribe, a judge favoring the wealthy, a traitor cheating in secrecy. Each act is small, but together they become a culture. And once corruption becomes a culture, collapse becomes inevitable. Look at modern nations with high corruption. The pattern is always the same: inflation, instability, mistrust, brain drain, and economic decline. Al-Ghazali understood that corruption erodes the invisible bond that holds societies together. Once people no longer trust the system, they stop participating in it. They hide wealth, they avoid taxes, they break rules, they leave if they can. The system collapses from the inside. He also understood the psychology of economic collapse. People hoard when they feel fear. They speculate when they feel greed. They cheat when they feel hopeless. And they disconnect when they feel ignored. Writings show that economic crises are rarely caused by mathematics or resources. They're caused by human beings losing their moral center. Society built only on profit is a society built on sand. A nation where the wealthy exploit and the poor despair is a nation heading toward instability. Now, look at the world today through Al-Ghazali's eyes. Record global debt, rising inflation, trust in governments falling, trust in banks collapsing, the middle class shrinking, families drowning in loans, currencies weakening, markets manipulated by billionaires and institutions, people working harder but feeling poorer, beneath it all a growing sense that something fundamental is wrong with the system. Al-Ghazali predicted this not because he knew the future, but because he understood human nature. When people prioritize wealth over ethics, speculation over fairness, profit over responsibility, and manipulation over honesty, collapse becomes inevitable. He believed that societies survive when they reconnect money with morality. He believed that true prosperity requires justice, not just economic justice, but moral justice. Because a stable society is built not on wealth, but on values. It is psychology. When that belief weakens, cracks appear. When cracks appear, fear spreads. When fear spreads, collapse follows. Al-Ghazali understood that economic education without ethical education is incomplete. Markets without morality are dangerous. Wealth without responsibility is destructive. And societies without justice cannot endure. If you strip away the centuries, the message is simple. Money loses value when people lose values. Society can survive hardship, war, even poverty, but it cannot survive corruption, greed, and moral decay. The final collapse of any civilization begins not with numbers, but with behavior, not with inflation, but with dishonesty. And that is why his ideas matter today more than ever. Where numbers show growth, but people feel decline. Where currencies exist, but purchasing power disappears. Where wealth increases, but fairness evaporates. Where technology advances, but wisdom fades. Understanding this protects you. It prepares you. It opens your eyes to the real forces shaping your world. And unless we learn from those who understood it long before us, we are destined to repeat the same mistakes. And this is history behind money, where the past finally explains the world you live in.